Hey everyone, welcome to How We Cope podcast, a podcast dedicated to elevating your life. Today we're going to talk about grief. The thing that really brought me to this podcast actually was my grief. I lost my sister to cancer in 2022, and I have found that grief is something universal we all feel, but we all feel and cope with it really differently. And so with me today, I have my best friend Talia, who has her own lived grief. And something that we spoke about is people really think about grief in the sense that it's always about someone that is already gone, right? Or it's when the loss has already happened. But there's a really big part of grief that, some people call it anticipatory grief. And we've been saying it's living grief, which is grieving somebody who's still here. And this can manifest in many different ways. It can be a breakup, could even be a job loss. And in the case of what we're going to talk about today, it's with someone that has a mental and or physical illness. So with that, who does grief bring you?
When I think of grief and the way I grieve, I think of my mom. This isn't something that I talk about all the time, but I talk about it with you frequent because, you're my best friend. We're unfiltered. We know everything about each other, but it's definitely something that's super personal. As an umbrella, my mom has Parkinson's and dementia. And so my grief journey has been a 20-year strong grief journey so far. She was diagnosed when I was in elementary school, and it's been a really, really tough journey. And so when I think of grief, I think of some of the stages of grief that I've gone through. There was diagnosis, and that was understanding that, okay, the relationship with this person as I know it is going to change.
Yeah.
And so that was my first grievance. Then there was smaller scale griefs as her disease progressed, her Parkinson's progressed, and that was her loss of abilities. So she had less energy. We couldn't do the activities that we loved doing together so much anymore. She couldn't strain herself. And so it was grieving our experiences and our relationships and the things that connected us.
Yeah.
Then it became a larger scale grief, and there was the bigger ticket items that I was losing. So she no longer has the ability to speak, to walk, all dexterity is gone. It's difficult for her to even eat basically at this point. And so then I had to grieve her really as a functioning human.
Yeah.
Full functioning human. And so that was really hard. But she was still my mom, and she still knew me. I knew her. And then she got diagnosed with Parkinsonian dementia,
Which is its own
sect of dementia that people with, it's luck of the draw, honestly, that you end up getting this coupled with your Parkinson's diagnosis. And now I'm in the stage of grieving her knowing me. And so that's a whole new chapter that I'm just touching on. But yeah, it's a lot of stages and different types of grief that, are still brewing and still building. And she is still here with me. So,
yeah, you have someone who's clearly ill in front of you, but they're still
here.
They're still here. Yeah. I think, Natalie, my sister, had cancer twice. The second one ended up taking her life. But the first time that she had cancer, seeing somebody's body deteriorate in that way,
it's insane,
is so heartbreaking. And then you're grieving this also, I think, loss of innocence of the person. We grow up as kids and we're cancer, dementia, what is that? It's, so also the grievance of the innocence of it all. None of us are immune to this.
Yeah. You have to like stop seeing the world through these rose-colored lenses and face the hard facts of like, okay, this is like, these are the cards that my family, that they were dealt. Like, I've got to grow up. Like, I've got to face it. Yeah, grieve that innocence.
Yeah. What has been your experience with grief?
So my grief journey, as you said earlier, everyone's grief journey, the way we grieve looks so different. For me, it's been a 20-year-long journey already. And so at this current point, my grief has kind of plateaued. And so I'm leaning more towards this stage of acceptance and a very strong understanding of what is happening and what's to come. That's not to say that it's not hard when I see my mom and like I don't pick up on these like new developments and new losses when I do see her. It doesn't make it easier, but the time that's gone by has really allowed me to push myself into this better place of understanding and this place of acceptance for a while. And still sometimes my grief looked a lot like jealousy. Yeah. And so,
like jealousy of other people.
Yeah. And so I found myself so often jealous of my friends who had these beautiful, healthy relationships with their moms. I was even jealous of people fighting with their moms and like people, you know, having these like snappy back and forth with their mom. I was like, I want that. Like, I crave fighting with my mom.
Yeah. And that's something that I think people really take for granted.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that grief gives you, is this whole new perspective that you would even want to have a fight.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
To be able to argue with somebody that you love. I think for me, my experience of grief has been hell. But right now, how I feel it is like, you know, if I were to put grief into a metaphor, it's like you're walking down the street and you're trying to get by, and there's like some annoying person behind you tapping on your shoulder every second. Like, hello, are you going to pay attention to me? What about today? What about today? What about today?
Yeah.
And like, they're not getting tired. But like, you're trying to go by, and like some days you're like, yes, what? Like, what do you want from me? And other days you're able to ignore it. And I think that's what's, you know, so hard too, is that there can be days in the grief process where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm good. And then there are days where like you're eating cereal and you're bawling your eyes out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for me, that tap and that person on my shoulder it's triggered by something usually. But for me, I see like a girl my age with her mom, or like my friends' moms are like buying them dresses for weddings and shit. And I'm like on this ride alone.
Yeah.
And that, like, I have these triggers.
Yeah.
And they do stem from jealousy, these triggers.
Yeah.
Another way I grieve now, or what my grief looks like now, is I grieve a lot more for others in my life than I do for myself.
How so?
Because I've pushed myself towards this place of acceptance. I feel like now I've created, maybe it's this false sense of space, but I've created this sense of space for others to feel pain and me to like carry their pain.
Meaning to grieve your mother.
Yes. So I have a younger brother and I have a younger sister. And so my grief looks like hurting for them. So I always say, like, I lost my mom, but my little sister lost her mommy. And so my grief day to day, or like when I get triggered, is like, yeah, this is so unfair. Like, the world is so messed up. But like, my little sister, like, her experiences with my mom when she was in a healthy place, the pool is smaller than mine.
Yeah. And sometimes that can be, you know, if we're going to put on my therapist hat here, it's like sometimes that can be an avoidance of it in itself. You know, I find myself doing that all the time. I'm like, how's my dad gonna survive this? Like, his daughter died. Like, he's not okay. He's seen me, and I'm like so worried about him.
Yeah.
And it like sometimes takes my therapist being like, Nicole, your sister died.
Yeah.
Like, are you okay? And I feel like sometimes, you know, being in the position of a giver, it can really feel like there's no room. And also, I think something that remains consistent, like you hear about grief and there's the 5 stages always.
Yeah.
There's another aspect to that I feel like is consistent. And that's the loneliness and the isolation of like feeling like nobody understands you. And something we talk about a lot is like nobody really likes talking about grief that hasn't experienced it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something that I've noticed is I'm definitely valuing relationships at this point in my life with the friends and with the people who have felt pain and who have felt hardship and sorrow. And like, I just want to preface that by saying I would never wish this type of pain upon my worst enemy ever. No one deserves this. But what I do look for is somebody who, you know, has that layer to them, has that depth to them that misfortune, unfortunately, brings us as people. And so for me, I put a lot of my energy into friendships and new relationships with people who I can dive deep with.
Yeah, I think you never want anyone to feel this pain, of course. But it also puts you in this place of being really frustrated at times.
Yeah.
Because you are dealing with this really hard experience and potential loss. And like everyone's life just feels like it's like moving forward.
Yeah.
And going on. And then the types of conversations that are happening can feel really triggering and shallow. And I mean, I think for me, you know, the way that my sister chose to die was in isolation. So she didn't tell anybody like that she was dying.
Yeah.
And she also was so specific about the timeline of who she kept in her life. And I was the last member of my family to be in touch with my sister when I was 21. And then she decided to, you know, go to San Francisco with her boyfriend and essentially die. And so what I find really isolating in the loneliness is like, how do you even explain some of, you know, the grief to people? But then also, you know, the people that don't know her, the people that don't know the person that you're grieving, and like, they don't feel comfortable asking questions.
Yeah.
Like, how are you?
Yeah.
Tell me about her. Like, and you know what? Like, admittedly, I don't even think I ask you enough questions about your mom.
Yeah, but I think that we've kind of like, in knowing each other for so long, have worked out the way that like we both want to lean on each other and we want to be checked in on. You know, my style is, it might differ from yours and someone else's. So like, obviously I don't hold that against you, you know?
Yeah, but it brings up like this really good, I think, point. I mean, you always talk about this, like, you know, we'll kind of see somebody that's out of touch with reality and like, that's beautiful. But what's unfortunate, but reality is that this is an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Right? Some of us just tend to feel grief earlier on in life. And so I think that that's, you know, to be on the outside looking in, I think people really have to remember, like, unfortunately, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
And so to try and avoid this subject, I mean, you're doing such a disservice to yourself, but also to the person that's grieving. Like, if I'm being completely honest, like, it's been 2 years since my sister died, and I'm pissed at everyone all the time because they're not asking me about her. Like, I'm like, this just happened. And you don't get over grief, as I'm sure that you know. So it's like, why do we not check in enough with each other? Why are we so uncomfortable by this subject of death?
Yeah. And I think that really like circles back to, our social circles are going to shrink like as we get older and as like this unfortunate starts creeping into more of our lives and we all experience loss and death and sickness, you know, because we're losing that ignorance. Your social circle shrinks and you surround yourself more with people who can relate to you and people who are more comfortable asking those questions to you because they want that done onto themselves.
Yeah, that's how I would really say like grief affects one's relationship.
Yeah.
People really only know others as deeply as they know themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think the types of relationships that me and you always talk about building is like, we actually have to talk about the painful things. It doesn't have to be all the time.
Yeah.
But like, you can't keep going on about life, like not, acknowledging that like, your mom is sick.
Yeah.
Or that like my sister died.
Yeah.
And I think that brings me to something else that we've spoken about, which is like, how does it affect your future relationships and like on a romantic level, even when you're looking for a partner?
For me, that's been one of the scariest things
I'm sure.
in dating. And I used to tell you this all the time. I used to go out on dates with people and be like, yeah, it went so well, like first date, second date. And I was like, Nick, when do I tell them that my mom is sick? I was like, I'm so scared that I'm going to tell them this, that like they're going to up and leave. And like that'll be the deal breaker for them. And I remember you used to say to me, like, Tall, that wasn't your person then.
Yeah.
Like if someone's dipping out on you because like you're strong enough and you're at peace enough with this to tell them and talk about it and be open and share, and they still decide to leave, like that was never your person. You didn't want them in your life anyways.
Yeah. Also, like not to be depressing, but their mom's gonna die too. So that's why I'm like, oh my God, like your husband or your potential partner has to be there in that sickness and that health. Like it's not only about us, it's about the family members and the grief that comes in with like holding another life.
Yeah, 100%. I think now as I've gotten older and as I've pushed myself into a better place with what's happening on a first date, like I don't lead with that because it's still a bomb to drop on someone, but like that's a conversation on the first date. And I don't dive heavily into like what's going on and like what that's looked like for me over the past 20 years. But I do say like, hey, like this is a part of what's made me.
Yeah.
A big part too. Like I pride myself on the person that I've become because of the hardships that I've endured, and you too.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember before I met Nevin, who's my husband, my biggest fear was like, are they gonna think that I'm too much? Like my grief is too much. There was that, and then there was also like this factor of, some people can be so shallow-minded that they're like, is this in your genetics?
Yes. Yeah, that was mine.
And then you like start to carry shame about something that's like not even your fault. And you also don't know. I mean, there's like so many reasons why people are getting ill now that like there's no predictability in this. And so I remember really feeling like, gosh, I don't know if I'll ever be with somebody that can hold this. And, I'm also a really hopeful story in this. Like I have the most emotionally available husband that I could have ever, I didn't even know it was possible to have somebody like him. And, if you listen to this podcast, you'll hear this story come up again and again. But my love story with him is that 3 months after my sister died, I meet this man who has this background of his phone of another boy. And I was like, okay, he's not gay. So who is this? And, that shared loss of a sibling that we both had was like this feeling of hope for me, not just for me, but for you and for so many people that deal with this fear of you are going to find someone that will not only be able to hold you, but will be able to heal you.
Yeah.
And I think there is so much love that goes into these types of relationships of, being real and being honest and being on that first date and being like, yo, this is my life. Are you in or are you out?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's a testament to someone's character, whether or not they are sitting across from you and they're like, yeah, like your mess is my mess. Like let's take this on together. Like I'm your rock. I'm your support.
I think too, like what can feel really healing in this living grief is talking about them, even when with your friendships, but like even when you are in that romantic relationship. Like I honestly talked about my dead sister so much with my now husband, that he started to miss her. I remember one day being in the car with him and I like looked to the left and I was like, why are you crying? And he was like, oh, I miss Natalie. Like he's never even met her. And so I think that, that's an important thing to remember too, of, when you talk about your mom, there's obviously so many complexities in that dynamic, because there's also, something we need to talk about here is when people are ill, they change.
Yeah.
And sometimes, sometimes it's not their fault and sometimes there's a choice there. Sometimes there's people that lock in, whether that, like, even if they can't speak, there's like a spiritual level there. And then there's the other part of it is like where they also cause pain, and that can be intentional or not intentional.
One of my earlier stages of grief, like we had talked about before, like my mom, like it's so scary.
Yeah.
It's like I can't even imagine the fear and the pain of that initial diagnosis or watching yourself deteriorate. I can't even imagine.
Oh my God, yeah.
And, like I remember being a little girl and watching my mom be so scared. And that obviously, that fear translated to me and my little siblings, and it affected my relationship with my mom. And I like had to start grieving like who she was before the disease took who she was, because her mental started to change.
Totally.
And then like that obviously shifted the dynamic with like my siblings and my dad, and like I had to step into this new role when I was little of like caretaker. And so like my dad's amazing, but like I became that older female figure for my brother and my sister. And so like I also had to grieve that like loss of childhood at a really early age, because I was like, it's my job now as the big sister to step up and like make sure everyone's okay and like make sure I'm doing what needs to be done on behalf of my mom.
Yeah, which is so hard. I think when it comes to mental or physical illness, it's this really prolonged grief, and there's no winning in grief, period. So you could have a sudden death and you could have a slower death, and I think that how this grief actually manifests into our lives surpass what we have expected. Like for me, I started getting gut issues when Natalie passed away. And like I'm honestly not even recovered yet. Like I'm still getting skin breakouts. I'm still having really hard periods, and like I'm just like bloated 24/7. And I thought like, oh, okay, was it this like medicine that I took, or like, do I need to take this gluten out and all this stuff? And like I went to a Chinese medicine doctor and she was like, you are grieving. You're grieving. So yeah, your liver is not functioning well. You have gut dysbiosis. And I think too, that's like the grief. Yes, it deteriorates their body. Obviously, of the person that has passed, or the person that is about to pass, or the person that's ill. It also really deteriorates the family. The people that love them.
I think that as women, we're designed to feel, and we're emotive, and we're caretakers by nature. So in turn, our bodies, they're designed to feel and carry pain and emotions of other people. So it can be as big as like, gut issues, hair loss, skin breakouts. And like even for me, little things like I know I'm stressed out when I get like a sty in my eye.
Yeah.
About like my sty situation.
Yeah.
So it's our bodies are constantly telling us how we're feeling physically.
Yeah, and sometimes our body has to get to such a point with grief where it's like, oh, you're not paying attention to this.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to show up as a physical ailment until you do something.
Yeah.
And I think that we have found ourselves in that situation many times. I mean, for me, it was like, when I use the word libido, I can use it as sex drive, but really how we talk about it in psychology is that it's your life force. And so that's like your ability to then hold other people and carry on, energetic conversations. And like, so for me as a therapist, grief really, really took a toll on me because I'm also sitting there and holding other people's grief. And sometimes I'll have a client had a family member or a loved one that died almost paralleled to how I lost my sister. And it's like that again, like this energy that keeps being exerted in my everyday. And then you go into this grief and you're like, okay, how do I give time to my friends? How do I give time to my husband? How do I give time to my dog? Like there's just so many things that pull from you. And so I think if you're listening to this and, you have this grief in you, just know it's really normal to feel abnormally exhausted, even if you've done nothing. And something I always say is like, it always comes back to grief. Yeah. Like sometimes I'll just be like sad and upset or, someone did something that bothered me, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
it always comes back to grief. And so I think that kind of, brings me into what do you wish more people understood about someone that's grieving? How can they be more helpful? How can they support that person?
I wish that people understood that, you can't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I don't need you to fix it. I can't fix it.
Yeah.
And, that can result in I've felt super helpless at times. That can result in my friends and my family and the people that want to be there for me feeling helpless and feeling like there's not enough to be done or said. But that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not have a solution.
Yeah. I think people get really stuck in that. And that's why grief is so scary is because you can't do anything about it. I actually saw this quote today that is speaking so loud, which was, if you want to feel better, you need to get better at feeling. And I think it's not just for us, the people that are grieving, but it's also for the people around you. You need to get better at listening.
Yeah.
If you want people around you to feel better, if you want them to, you're so stuck on not seeing them sad, you need to get better at listening, because by you denying this person's grief, you are allowing them to hold it even longer.
Yeah.
And I think that's what gets, so tricky sometimes is people are so afraid, I don't know, should I ask her? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
If someone in my life is dying or ill or sick or has died, ask me. You don't even have to ask about them, but just ask me if I'm okay, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I want people to understand that grief looks different on everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And so just because I'm not crying or I don't want to talk about it doesn't mean I'm not feeling it, And I think that that's actually something that I don't really struggle with my friends. I've been so lucky in that way. But I struggle with that sometimes, with my family even. They'll be like, why aren't you feeling? Or does it not bother you? Why are you retreating?
Yeah.
And, maybe I grieve by taking a moment to remove myself from the situation so that I can process it on my own, not And I don't want to confront it in that moment.
Yeah.
And so the way I'm going to grieve it is going to look a lot different than the way my little sister's going to grieve it, my little brother's going to grieve it, my dad.
Totally. And I think that's also like, how are you supposed to grieve in a world that's uncomfortable with grief?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you shouldn't have to wear your grief on your sleeve in order for people to know that you're going through something or that you're upset. Like I remember during the beginning of when my sister died, I mean, granted, I was also going through a breakup. And so I was trying to like get through the breakup by like doing what, people do, which is like going out and spending time with friends. But the reality was I was spending every single night crying alone. I cried myself to sleep. I was screaming, all this stuff. And then I show up and be like, you're doing really well. Or, no, she's good.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Like, we don't make it comfortable for people to grieve. And I think that the best thing that you can do to support someone who has loss in their life is to just listen, but also don't always make them be the person that has to bring it up. Like, that's so exhausting.
Yeah.
And again, like, there's the feeling of I'm a burden. Like, I feel like I'm going to burden you if I bring this up.
Yeah, 100%. I also, like, something that I've had to navigate with a lot of my relationships is I don't do well feeling pitied.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't help me push forward. Yes, like I want my pain and my sadness to be acknowledged 100%, but I don't want to ever be looked at as like the girl who's losing her mom.
Yeah, like poor you.
Yeah, poor you. Because that doesn't allow me to like pull myself out of that poor me mindset.
Yeah.
Like I need words of encouragement and strength, not, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. On that matter, how do we cope?
I've leaned into a lot of different avenues to help me cope. One of the biggest ones is like a little personal mantra. And I always remind myself that everything I'm doing and how I'm living, I'm doing it for my mom. So when I started to not be able to have conversations with her, like felt like she could no longer hear me, starting to not really recognize me, I made this promise to her and I was like, Mom, like my brother, my sister, my dad, like they're okay. Like I've got them. I'll hold it down. I'll take care of them. And so everything I do, I remind myself that I'm living for her and for me. The things
which
that
is
she
a big
can't
burden to carry too. It's like such a blessing and there's so much strength in that.
Yeah.
But that's also like really heavy.
Yeah, no, it's like this added responsibility that I've done on to myself, but it helps me cope because it helps me with this sense of purpose. That's bigger than myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people turn to God or some sort of a spiritual practice when it comes to grief. I mean, specifically in my grief journey, I, in the beginning, was in such denial of like, how does this happen? Like, how could the universe like do this to my sister?
Yeah.
But then there's the other part, again, where like you feel such light and blessing in your life that you're like, oh, the same person that took from me, the same energy that took is the same energy that gives. And, this brings me to actually talk about Kabbalah a little bit, because what Kabbalah helps me with is, sometimes we feel like God or the universe is such a punishing force of like, God did this or the universe took this from me. And Kabbalah really helped me realize like, that's not what's happening. Actually, God is not doing that. The universe is not trying to take someone from us. It only gives.
Yes.
And so if you have that mentality, the way that you can then not only hold your mom, but like even with my sister, like to a regard of, I understand our relationship transcends whatever is physically happening here, right? You can't speak, you can't talk, but like what is the energy of the universe? What is the energy of God? It's consistent love.
Yeah.
And when you go from that place, like, I really believe that it bleeds elsewhere. And that's where, like, finding purpose, I know that, like, romantically you haven't. I hope by the time this podcast airs that you have. But for me, like, there's so much God in my relationship. There's so much grief in my relationship as a result of, Natalie and Nevin's brother being able to give that to us. And the last thing that I'll say, and this is something I haven't spoken about yet, is plant medicine. Plant medicine ceremonies specifically is something that I've told you I want to do for you.
Yeah.
But I have both personally and professionally done plant medicine ceremonies, which, to, make it short, it pretty much is like a very beautiful dream that you can control. And so with plant medicine, you take certain medicines that give you these visuals and bring up a lot of the subconscious thoughts that, specifically when it comes to grief, has helped me so much, because I've been able to talk to Natalie. I've been able to talk to my sister. I've been able to fight with her, and I've been able to tell her, like, why did you leave me? And I think with any of my clients that are dealing with such grief in the moment and the after of it, I'm like, plant medicine can bring you that much closer to the person, but also closer to the idea of, like, there is bigger purpose in this.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, speaking on grief, sometimes in the plant medicine ceremony, it's not just like the person that seems to be the overarching theme of grief. It's like you almost have this, like, grief for the whole world. You're like, oh, we're all gonna die. And, like, now I need to go out into the world and actually, like, make my life matter. And then the most beautiful thing that I've personally experienced and have seen people experience in their plant medicine ceremonies is the grief of their ancestor. Like, I never met my great grandpa, but he comes to me when I do my plant medicine ceremonies, and I just, like, I miss him so much. And so there's an ancestral blessing that comes into such a sacred space too. And so, that's something that we'll revisit many times on this podcast, is plant medicine and the benefits of it, and how you can, get into it, and who you should be doing it with. So yeah. Feeling anything else?
I feel like we touched a lot of what I think I'm ready to touch.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. And I really want to celebrate you today for being able to talk about this. And I think for people who are listening, just know everything is normal. When it comes to grief. Like, if you're feeling nothing, that's normal. If you're feeling happy and relief, that's normal. If you're feeling sad and agony, that's also normal. To really lean in on people, like we said, that can listen, can work on feeling more and listening more, so that you're able to actually have a space that you don't feel like too much. And I always hope that this podcast is that space for you guys. So thank you so much, Tal, for being with me. And thank you guys for listening. Hey everyone, welcome to How We Cope podcast, a podcast dedicated to elevating your life by your host, Nicole Nurian. This podcast is sponsored by Culver City Chevrolet, where you can lease a Chevy Equinox for $189 a month. Mention you're a subscriber of How We Cope podcast to unlock the special deal.